afternoon and welcome everyone to today's Way Forward Workshop Leader Lunch Break. News of what's been happening in Israel has dominated the headlines in recent weeks, and we are thrilled to welcome Oren Baratz to help us to understand better what exactly is going on. As Senior Vice President for External Affairs for the Jewish Federation of Cleveland, Oren presides over international operations, government and community relations, the Volunteer Center, community security, and a budget of over $65 million. Oren came to Cleveland in 2004 from his native Israel with deep experience in Israeli affairs, having retired from the Israeli Ministry of Defense after a 28-year career. He also served as vice consul of the Israeli consulate in Toronto. It's been written of Oren that he has the ability to conceptualize future directions both strategically and tactily. I would suggest that there's no stronger evidence of this than his work as one of the dedicated founding architects and board member of Global Cleveland, where he mentors those finding their way in our community, and he exposes what's probably his greatest talent, the development of people. He has worked to bridge communities in Northeast Ohio to those in Israel, and he continues his hope to improve neighborhoods here and to grow our spirit of entrepreneurship. He's been recognized by Cranes as a notable immigrant leader for his determination to connect members of different religious and cultural groups to one another and to job opportunities. He's committed to helping newcomers establish and succeed in Northeast Ohio as leaders in our community. And he's a proud alum of Leadership Cleveland. Thank you for joining us, Oren. We look forward to hearing your remarks.
Thank you, Marianne. From now, you are, every time I make a presentation, you're coming with me. Thank you very much. It was very kind and much appreciated. So first of all, it's great being here with you. And it's also great seeing so many familiar faces. So it makes me feel good to see so many of you. So thank you for joining. I'll say that making a presentation about this topic in 10 minutes is a challenge, but I'll try and do the best I can, and I'll basically really stay on very, very high level description without the ability to go into deeper background. But I'll say that if anybody is interested in the future to have a more extensive discussion, understand better the background and the history, I'm always happy to talk to one person or 50. So don't hesitate to approach me if you feel that you want more background. So historical background. Israel was founded in 1948 and never got to create a constitution. The intention was to create a constitution when the state was formed, but for a whole array of reasons, a constitution wasn't created. That's number one. Number two, the Israeli parliamentary system is actually a system where basically we don't have a three armed governing system. We have actually only a two governing system, because our parliament, and because it's a coalition, it's a parliamentary system and a coalition system. The moment the parliament creates a coalition in order to form a government, the parliament and the government are quite one body. So basically we have a government and a parliament on one side, and the checks and balances system is basically only our court system and our Supreme Court system. So that reality of a kind of a not wholesome checks and balances system, number one, and number two, not having a constitution, created a situation that as the country developed from 1948 and the systems have had to deal on a day-to-day basis with all kinds of issues based also both of checks and balances, and on dealing with issues that come up because of a need to make decisions, but legal issues and stuff like that. Our Supreme Court needed, as the country developed, to make more and more legal decisions and interpretation of the law based on legal philosophy, legal morals, and etiquette that were derived from the people sitting in the Supreme Court, and created a reality where the Supreme Court gained more and more power. Okay, which in many cases was positive, but in many cases also created a situation where a lot of the ability of the executive arm, the government, to perform policies and execute and implement sometimes were limited. Now, when you have different governments with different policies and different ideologies, clashes happened. Now, another reality, which is very, very much apparent now in Israel, and by the way, I don't think it's only in Israel, that in Israel, every governmental ministry has a legal advisor, and these legal advisors are actually non-political positions. It's a civil servant, and these legal advisors have acquired during the years a lot of power. And today, those legal advisors have the ability to withhold actually implementation based on legalities. And of course, that also causes a lot of tension between the executive arm and the legal arm. Just to so you understand how it works, you probably heard about the fact that Israel attacked Gaza about 36 hours ago. Before Israel went into attack, there was a consultation and approval of the legal advisor of the government for the actions the military was going to take to make sure that it's within legal boundaries of international law regarding warfare and stuff like that. So that is kind of the situation that brought ourselves where we are now. Regarding where we are now, so the government coalition was created after the elections of the 1st of November. That coalition is a coalition that is comprised.
Yeah. Whoops, Oren, I think we lost some sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah, the government that was created was a government that was supported by parties of the right wing, the extreme right wing, religious and ultra-Orthodox parties, and they have their policies and what they believe. And one of the things that this government set to do was actually to create a reform that will, on one hand, limit the jurisdictional power that the Supreme Court has, and in addition, make some changes to the ability of the legal advisors of the government and of the different and the government basically set to the structural reform. And basically what that created was a lot of objection by some segments of the Israeli society. And in the last 18 weeks, we have experienced a whole movement of grassroots, and I have to emphasize, it is grassroots protest. And you can't say it's only the left wing, or it's only the middle class, or it's only the high-tech people. It's hundreds of different groups which are representing many segments of the community. which are actually objecting to this reform. And the objection is because of fear that it is going to begin a transformation of Israel from being fully democratic. And that's right now the tension within Israel. I have to say it's a grassroots movement, very organized, very tightly led by representatives of these organizations, very high level of communication. The politicians of the opposition are not leading it, and they are participating, but they are not leading it. And very effective. And right now, the legal reform was halted, and there are all kinds of discussions at the president's house, in our president's office, with different representatives of the coalition and opposition and other experts in legal issues, with an attempt to get to some kind of a compromise. We'll see where it goes. And I think there is a general understanding that some changes have to happen. I don't know where it's going to go. And just a couple of interesting phenomena, that there's a great involvement of, in Israel, we are the army of the nation. It's not a professional army, and people, after they finish their basic 3-year service, are continue doing reserve service until 550. And what we have seen is an immense involvement in reservist soldiers in the protest, and that sent a very, very strong message to the government that this move has potential to tear Israeli society. And I think one of the things that Israeli society is right now trying to deal is how we move forward and we don't tear the fabric of our unity as a nation, which is unaccepted. But I have to say, it's very interesting to see how the reservists in the military actually got together and are taking a leadership and deep engagement role in this protest. And again, in their eyes, and again, it's all in from what political angle you come from, are protecting democracy. So that's where we are now, and it's complicated. I think it's from Israeli society. It's probably one of the most challenging periods we've ever been. You can say, the establishment in the states and the War of Independence in 1948 is one of the most challenging times. Then the 1973 war, then the assassination of our Prime Minister Rabin, and I think this is from the point of view of who we are going to be going forward, and how it's going to affect who we are as a nation. I think this is very crucial. And I just want to say, I think there is, like in every complicated issue, there is truth on both sides. And the people who are saying that there has to be some kind of adjustment to the power that the legal system has are right. And the people that are feeling that, there is a danger that our democratic values are going to be challenged, there's truth there too. And, like everything, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. And that's what we are trying to figure out now. I'll say that there is also another important message here, which is the power of the people, and what has been proven here, that when people go out to the street, and I have to say, the protest movement has been very, very active, very, very effective, but no violence, no rioting, nothing. It's very powerful. So that's it. That was trying to say what I had to say in 10 minutes. And now it's your time to ask questions, and I'll try and answer the best I can. I hope I have answers. If I don't have answers, I'll say I don't know, and we'll look how to get you answers. So thank you for listening.
Oren, thank you so much. Let's jump in by, can you explain a little more about how the issue of legal standing to bring lawsuits affects the relationship between the executive and the judicial?
I'm not sure that I understand the question. If the person that asked the question can be a bit more accurate, I'm.
Hi, Oren. It's Mark Stavsky. How are you?
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good. Yeah, my question is that my understanding in talking to my friends in Israel, that there's a difference between the Israeli system. One of the differences between the Israeli legal system and the system in the United States is that in the United States, to bring a lawsuit, you must have standing, meaning you must have an active interest in the lawsuit that's being brought. But in Israel, that's different. And if you can explain that.
Sure. So let's say the government makes a decision. Basically, any entity that has a legal challenge to the decision that was made can actually go directly to the Supreme Court to debate it and to challenge it. Okay. Now, that's by the way, that's part of the issue. In the United States, if I'm not mistaken, I read that the Supreme Court deals and the Supreme Court of Appeal deals with, I think, about 120 cases a year. In Israel, the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals deals with over 3,000 cases a year, and that's part of the issue.
It would seem to me that would be something that could be resolved.
Yeah, so that's
one of the.
Yeah, that's one of the issues. Yeah.
Oren, do you foresee that Israel might draft a constitution at some point in the future? Would that help with this situation as we look ahead?
It's a great question. And there are a lot of attempts now to say that one of the results should be that Israel should create a constitution now. So I made a similar presentation to this with Judge Dan Polster. He talked about the legal issues, and I described what's going on in Israel. And Judge Polster said, try and imagine the United States trying to revisit your constitution right now. Is it possible or not? And his claim, it will not be possible in the United States. I have to be honest. I think that the reasons why Israel couldn't get itself create a constitution in 1948, 75 years later, have become just more complicated. So I think if Israel can, as a result of this, move to some reality where we can move towards a constitution, will be great. I think it's going to be very, very hard, because I think the issues that were in 1948 just got much more complicated 75 years later. And I'll say, just to give a little expression, the whole issue of the lack of separation between state and church, it's a major issue that was in 1948, and now it's even more complicated. And then other issues like the West Bank and all that, and that we don't have time to get into it now, but definitely doesn't make it easier to create a constitution right now.
Given current demographic trends, can Israel remain both a Jewish state and a democratic state?
Look, by the way, the whole issue of the difficulty to create a constitution in 1948 was also around this issue. When they drafted the Declaration of Independence, the whole issue of Jewish and democratic was an issue. Then it was an issue when they drafted the Declaration of Independence. Are we first Jewish? Are we first democratic? Are we both? This is an issue that the Supreme Court is actually called to deal on a regular basis. So yeah, this is one of the issues that we are dealing with. Better than others, sometimes worse than others. This is one of the issues that as a young state we are still dealing with.
And Oren, I think just at the end there, your microphone cut out just a little bit more. So we'll try with the next question here. Looking at the protests and how these are really a kind of a grassroots efforts, how do you feel these efforts can be sustained among these kind of grassroots groups coming together?
Great question. And I'll say that this is not the first time Israeli civil society is protesting for a long time. We had a whole period of protest in 2011 around socioeconomic issues, not political issues, and not legal issues. And it seems that the different organizations and segments in society that are protesting now are very, very committed and very, very dedicated. And the fact that this is taking place already for 18 weeks, every Saturday and every Thursday, I will say for some of us, it's surprising. And I've got a feeling that this protest is not going to die. And it seems that another thing is to see also the involvement of the younger generation. The younger generation is getting very, very involved and very, very committed. And I'll say the other interesting reality is that the supporters of the reform and the supporters of the government are in the first 12 weeks, we're not in the streets. In week 13, 14, we began seeing them more on the streets, and then now again less. But they're very, very active on social media. So there are all kinds of interesting realities that I think Israeli society is experiencing the first time to the extent it is we're seeing now.
What impact does what's happening in Israel now have here on U.S. politics?
Look, I don't consider myself to be an expert about American politics, and I try not to talk about stuff I don't understand. What I will say, I think that at a certain stage, the American administration behind the scenes and a little bit above the scenes sent some very, very strong messages to Israel. And there is a kind of a understanding that what helped the American administration send a very strong message was the understanding the extent of the protest movement in Israel.
So let's take that question and kind of look more towards the impact that Israeli politics have on the American Jewish community, and in particular here in Cleveland.
Look, what happens in Israel affects deeply what happens in Jewish communities all around the country, and I think that not every Jew in the United States, but a big segment of Jewish community wants to identify with Israel, wants to identify around shared values with Israel. It's part what happens to Israel and the ability to identify is part of the Jewish identity of Jewish communities living in the diaspora, and I think Jewish communities around the world have a role to play. Because I think there's a deeper culture among Jewish communities around the world of how to reach consensus, how to bring everybody under the tent. And I think that's where Jewish communities around the world and Jewish leadership around the world can help Israelis. And I think another thing, look, I don't think that the judicial reform is going to go past how it was planned to. There'll be some kind of a compromise, okay? But then this last 4 months is creating some significant tension among Israeli segments of society, and I think American Jewry can be a very important voice and facilitator to Israelis and Israeli organizations of how to move forward and repair relationship and cohesiveness.
Oren, for those of us on the call who are interested in staying updated on what's happening, continuing to learn more, what are some good go-to resources that you would recommend?
Look, first of all, as someone who is not on social media, I can't recommend social media because I just don't know where. I'm just not on social media. I'm a real dinosaur from that point of view. Where I get my information, I'm part of all kinds of WhatsApp groups of different segments of Israeli society on both sides, and that's how I get my information. And of course, talking to people. I would recommend to go to the website of the Israeli Institute for Democracy. That's one source. Another source that represents the thinking of the supporters of the reform, because I think you have to understand both sides. There is a think tank which is called the Kohelet, Kohelet Institute, and they're an Israeli think tank, which with a right-wing orientation. I think it's important to read their material in order to understand. And as I said again, I'll be happy to continue talking with anybody who wants to learn more and understand more. I'm here for you. I'll make time to meet anybody who wants to meet. I'll make time.
Oren, thank you so much. You can't see the chat, but Mike Parks was gracious enough to invite everyone on the call to join you for lunch. So you can be expecting a lot of outreach.
Okay, Mike.
Your comments remind me of when I visited Israel and I heard repeatedly, well, it's complicated. And certainly it is. For shedding some light on this for all of us.
I just suddenly saw that my wife the whole time hiding with so I hope I didn't embarrass her. And seriously, I'll make myself available to any individual or a group, lunch, coffee, dinner at my home. You're always welcome. Did you hear, Sue?
She agrees. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Oren, and thank you, Sue, for the invitation.